What's up, everybody? Welcome into DodgerHeads, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Medium Large Sports Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined this morning by Matthew Moreno because we have a fascinating rumor that came out of the Boston Red Sox area. Sean McAdam of MassLive.com saying the Red Sox have interest in Dodgers catcher Dalton Rushing, according to sources, and that the Dodgers have been scouting a pair of high A prospects, including the number one prospect in their in the Red Sox organization as it currently stands. And so, Matt, we've been talking about the Dodgers possibly going and getting dudes that can help them. This seems to suggest maybe we've got a Michael Busch part two headed between the Boston Red Sox and Los Angeles Dodgers.
Yeah, a little curious on all fronts. On one hand, I don't know if the Dodgers would trade Dalton Rushing at this point early. Obviously, just made his MLB debut this season. It's the first time he's getting a chance to take on any sort of role with the Dodgers. On the other hand, I know I've raised this on some of our live shows that we've done over recent weeks, and you mentioned it, Michael Busch. Like, looking at Dalton Rushing, like his pedigree, he's a former top prospect in his own right? Like, he came up because he had nothing left to prove at AAA, earned his way up to the major league level. Dodgers just so happen to have your guy, Will Smith, behind the plate, signed to a long-term extension. The left field experiment with Dalton Rushing last year ended. Like, they went into spring training this season saying, we're not doing that anymore. We want him to focus on catching, which sounded great. And then they called him up, and it's like, well, now you're going to be our backup catcher. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Like, this isn't, a perennial veteran that you had down at Oklahoma City. Like, this is your top prospect in your system, and you have him just sitting, on the bench start. And the Dodgers are aggressive with how much time they give Will Smith off. So fine, like, Rushing is making, I mean, what do you want? What should we call it? Semi-regular starts, if you will.
Couple days a week.
But his outlook is like there's not a clear starting role that you think somebody of his pedigree would sort of warrant. First base, Freddie Freeman signed through 2027 season, so that's not on the horizon. So it does sort of make sense that maybe the Dodgers would be open to exploring this. But like you said, what doesn't necessarily add up is if the return is potentially only a couple prospects who are barely reaching the high A level this season.
Yeah, Dalton Rushing, by the way, under team control through 2031. So the Dodgers, even as you say those things, because I'm with you, he can't play first base anytime soon. He's not going to be the DH anytime soon. It appears as if, at least for this year, they have nixed the left field experiment. And so is there a world where 28 through 2031, he's the first baseman of the Dodgers? Maybe. But do you really want to just hang on to him for the next 2 years and watch him sit there kind of as an insurance policy? So I think, to me, Matt, the idea that they would be open to trading Dalton Rushing makes perfect sense to me, because unless there's an injury, he's not going to make an impact on this season's club. And as we just shared, he's not really going to make an impact for the next couple of years unless they're willing to change positions with him or move some things around, which seems unlikely. I think the surprising part to me about this rumor is that the two names the Dodgers are connected to are, like the Michael Busch trade, guys that are a long way away from the major leagues. Both guys who are mentioned are part of the Red Sox high A affiliate in Greenville. Again, it's shortstop Franklin Arias, and lefty starter Brandon Clark. Arias is the number one prospect in the Red Sox organization, according to Pipeline. Keith Law has him as the number 9 prospect in all of Major League Baseball, if you like his rankings. Clark is like kind of the fourth-ish guy on Pipeline's rankings, probably just outside the top 100. The 3 guys ahead of him are all inside the top 100. So just to give you a sense, and again, we've seen the Dodgers make that trade. They traded Michael Busch because there was no pathway. They got 2 guys that people weren't necessarily on the radar of, and both those guys are now top 100 prospects. Well, Michael Busch has had an incredible season for the Chicago Cubs, and it's kind of a win-win for everybody, I think, as far as that goes. So let me start with this, and then we'll talk about the Jarren Duran part of this. Do you think there's a world where the Dodgers would make a move like this to go and get pieces that are, I mean, we're talking high A. This is like 3 years away from being contributors. Do you think they would make this type of move this week?
Yeah. So yes. And there are 2 layers to this for me. One, is it possible that they're going potentially and getting these prospects to then flip one of them in another trade, maybe even both? I don't know.
Yeah.
I would be inclined that they would probably want to keep Arias, just because, like, he's a shortstop, and we've joked, but not joked, that that's been a revolving door for the Dodgers since Corey Seager left. And so maybe they view him as, some sort of long-term solution. And here's your chance to get him now. The other part of this is, maybe it is just, look, the Michael Busch thing, it is panned out from the standpoint of Ferris and Hope are obviously on a very good trajectory. But that situation, like, it almost looked like that's all you ended up trading Michael Busch for type thing, right? In some sense. So do they want to potentially avoid that scenario again? So to answer your question, like I said, yes, it wouldn't fully surprise. Like, I don't think this would be like their big move per se, right? Like, hey, we have bullpen needs, but we decided to do this instead. Like, they're not going to then kick their feet up. But we know Andrew Friedman, Brandon Gomes, like, Dodgers have several things moving at one time.
Yeah, and when we talk about some of the closers, Jarren Duran, Emmanuel Clase, Griffin Jax types, there's rumors about how high the asking price is going to be. And so is there a world where the Dodgers can turn Dalton Rushing into the prospects required to then go and get a Clase or a Duran? Because the asking price on those guys is huge, but like, I wonder if Dodgers fans would trade Dalton Rushing straight up for Emmanuel Clase or straight up for Jarren Duran. Again, tons of team control left. Dalton Rushing, one of the top prospects, plays a premium position and in theory hasn't proven it yet at the major league level, but has hit at every level up until that point. And so maybe the Dodgers can get some sort of a discount if they can get other prospects other than Rushing to go and make the move. But the other piece of this is Jarren Duran. There is an outfielder that the Red Sox have that may or may not be available depending on who you ask. He's listed on a bunch of guys who could be traded. The Red Sox have seemingly insisted that they're not interested in moving their young outfielder. But when you look at Jarren Duran, this is a guy who, at the age of 28, had a really good 2024 season, kind of in his first, I would say, like, fully extended full season of Major League play, was a plus defender, 834 OPS, has regressed this year. The OPS is down 50 points. The defense doesn't grade out as well. But is it possible that the Dalton Rushing interest from the Red Sox could center on a move for a corner outfield that the Dodgers need? They could use some help in the corner outfield, both offensively and defensively.
Yeah, and this was the other part. Like, when this report first came out this morning, I thought, you see the prospects and I'm thinking, okay, like, are they, one, maybe trying to shore up just their future, like I mentioned, especially at shortstop? Two, is it maybe they need one or both of these potential prospects to include in a different deal? And three, is it possible that the reported interest from both sides, Dodgers and Red Sox, is going to lead to maybe Jarren Duran being involved in? And as you mentioned, the confusing aspect with that is he available? Is he not available? Like, what's going on there? I know there are reports out that the Red Sox turned down a trade offer from the Padres that I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, and included Dylan Cease and a couple other pieces. So, I mean, if like signs maybe are pointing towards like they don't want to trade Jarren Duran, but I do think if the Dodgers are headed down this path, like, it certainly would behoove them to say, hey, like, can we loop in Duran and maybe one of the two prospects type thing instead of both prospects? Or, if maybe the Dodgers expanded on their side, like, there's no, like, it's not like they can only trade Dalton Rushing, of course. Like, if they say, we'll swap a couple minor leaguers as well with you guys and figure this out. Yeah, I mean, the stuff is fun to sort of discuss and kick around and wonder about, and then I think we'll come up with different scenarios, and then Andrew Friedman will say, actually, here's a 4-team trade that we're doing with Boston and so forth and so forth to get this done. So there, as much as we could kind of maybe try to read some tea leaves, like, who knows where this could end up turning into.
Yeah, my guess is if Duran is coming back to the Dodgers, it would have to be Dalton Rushing and then some pieces from the Dodgers end. And so that's what makes the part about them scouting the high A affiliate so curious, because it doesn't, it kind of feels like you have to choose. Like, do you want the major league guy who's the outfielder, or do you want the prospects? Unless the Dodgers are going to include a number of other pieces on their side of things, I don't necessarily see the fit.
Dustin May.
I was just going to say, is Dustin May a piece that's included in this move? Because we've talked about on this channel many times how the Dodgers might be interested in moving him. There are lots of teams out there. The Red Sox are currently trotting Walker Buehler out there on a regular basis, so they might be interested in adding a starting pitcher who can help them at least for this season. And so there's lots of moving pieces. Duran, by the way, is a free agent in 2029, so not quite as much team control as Dalton Rushing, but obviously he's more valuable because he's proven he could do it at the major league level and plays a less premium position than catcher. But again, he's actually done it. He's posted an awesome 130 weighted runs created plus in 160 games last season while playing excellent defense. He was a 7-win player last year, according to Fangraphs. So we're not talking about just some fringe outfield type. We're talking about a potential perennial all-star that the Dodgers could be adding, although he has had a down year this year. The weighted runs created plus down to 104. So I guess I'll ask you this, Matt, to close this piece out. Like if I told you, hey, Dalton Rushing is going to get traded to the Red Sox, would you prefer that it's Dalton Rushing and something? Maybe it's Dustin May and then like a lower level prospect for Jarren Duran, or Dalton Rushing for, a high end prospect like Arias and, maybe a middling prospect included in well. Like if I told you he's going to get traded to Boston, which of those two pathways would you be more interested in?
I would probably take the Duran trade. I know, as you mentioned, like there are some concerns with his play this year. I would jokingly argue that that's when the Dodgers like to pounce when a player has shown the potential, and maybe not that they would be buying low in this sense, because Dalton Rushing certainly, like I said, has the prospect pedigree, has the potential, like several quality years ahead of him. But I just and you also know me, like I'm not the prospect guy among our staff. I understand that there is value, and as I mentioned with Anthony on our live show, like I know that Corey Seager was a prospect, and Walker Buehler was a prospect, and Bellinger was, and those guys certainly panned out and had successful careers and results with the Dodgers. That being said, this team, what we're looking at right now, as much as Andrew Friedman does operate with the win now and in the future mindset, and that has proven to be beneficial, if not successful, like they have glaring needs, I think it's safe to say, for 2025. And not that Jarren Duran is a slam dunk per se, given what we've seen from him this year, but I think it can be reasoned that he is, let me try to put this nicely for you, an upgrade in some regard for the Dodgers outfield.
Yeah, it's fair. It's fair. And I think obviously it's way more interesting to go acquire a guy who's going to help you in the short term. There's way less risk associated with going and acquiring a Jarren Duran, which is why the cost is so much higher. And to your point, like even if the guy we're seeing this year is who he is, he's a slightly above average offensive player who's a massive upgrade in the corner outfield as well. And if you can get him back to being like a 120, 125, 130, 135 type weighted runs created plus guy, then all of a sudden you've got yourself a perennial all-star. And it's worth pointing out the Dodgers don't have outfielders in the next 2 or 3 years that are pounding down the door at AAA. Like, yes, they have Josue DePaula and Sirota. The lower levels, the high A, low A situation in the outfield is stacked. That's low A and high A. Like, we're not talking about guys that are in double A or even AAA at this point. So I think if they could go get Duran, he's not my favorite player as far as the overall profile. There's obviously been some off the field stuff with him that I think, you'd have to navigate or at least acknowledge a little bit. However, I think he helps this team win. And I think if you're asking, do the Dodgers want to win the World Series in 2025? I think having Jarren Duran on the roster will help them far more than having Dalton Rushing on the roster. And I think you could say that's the case in 2025, 2026, and 2027 for sure. After that, then maybe Dalton Rushing would have a place to play. But if you're the Dodgers, this is the window. And these are the 3 years that you're staring down the barrel of. You have plenty of prospects. I would add Hunter Fiducia could come up and be the backup catcher tomorrow. And who knows, maybe even do a better job in the short term offensively than Dalton Rushing has had, just because he's a little more seasoned and has had a little bit more experience. So again, the reports from Mass Live, the Red Sox are interested in Dalton Rushing. The Dodgers have sent some additional scouts to high A Greenville for the Red Sox. Make of these rumors what you want. But here's what I want to know. Would you, I'm going to ask the chat and the comments below the same question. Would you prefer to trade, if Dalton Rushing was getting traded to the Red Sox, would you prefer it to be Dalton Rushing, Dustin May, and another prospect for Jarren Duran, or Dalton Rushing and you're getting back a Michael Busch type haul where you're adding a couple low-level prospects, but due to have ceilings that are not, just fringe all-star, but actually potential superstar guys like this guy Arias potentially could be. So let us know in the comments below. You can check out all the latest news on this on DodgerBlue.com. If you haven't already, check out our app, the Dodger Blue app, wherever you go and get your apps. Find it. It has all of our content, all of our videos, all of our news, all in one place. It's the best place to find that. And of course, if you're new to our YouTube page, Please subscribe, ring the notification bell. We are so close to 90,000 subscribers, and we'd love to have you be a part of us. We go live Tuesday nights, Thursday nights, and we will be back on Sunday night as well with news. We've got interviews lined up with people around the industry, players, minor leaguers, as well as writers and reporters. So that is Matthew Moreno. I am Jeff Spiegel, folks. We appreciate you joining us here on Dodger Heads. Enjoy the rest of your day, and as always, go Dodgers.